Stop calling it brain rot. That phrase implies your mind is decaying because it's weak, it lacks discipline or motivation. I'm not convinced that is true. Your brain isn't broken, it is functioning exactly how it was designed to function. It's just executing an ancient survival code in an environment engineered to hack it. In today's video, I'm going to look at 9 signs that you might be developing the slang term brain rot, and 9 things you can do to change it if you decide to. We ask ourselves, why can't I read a book anymore? Why do I feel exhausted but not rested? Why do I have trouble concentrating on watching a film at home without picking up my phone unconsciously? We aren't just distracted, we are undergoing a fundamental rewiring of our cognitive machinery. We think the enemy is the phone, the device that is attached to our body 24/7. It's not. The enemy is the speed at which we are forcing our biology to process emotion, the most complex types of emotion. I am a father. I watch what constant stimulation does to adults around me, including myself. What if our brains are not failing? What if they are adapting? According to research by Gloria Mark at the University of California, the average duration of attention on a screen dropped from about 2.5 minutes in 2004 to roughly 47 seconds in 2016. And after another 10 years, it might be down to 15 seconds. And that is how long a viral TikTok or Italian brain rot video lasts. This is not laziness. This is measurable behavioral change. And when I look at my children, I cannot help but wonder what kind of cognitive environment we're normalizing for them to live in the future. The actions not taken now will corrupt their chances in the future world that will, of course, include some form of social media and smartphones. A 2019 study in JAMA Pediatrics found associations between higher screen time at age 2 to 3 and lower performance on developmental screening tests later in childhood. We are not distracted. We are running the largest uncontrolled neurological experiment in human history, and the subjects are our children. There is a concept in behavioral psychology called variable ratio reinforcement. It was explored by B.F. Skinner. The principle is simple. Rewards delivered unpredictably produce higher response rates than predictable rewards. Slot machines use it, so do infinite feeds. You swipe a joke, a tragedy, a dance, a political outrage, a snippet of heightened violence, a weird character that is colorful and makes weird noises, the best sections of your favorite films summarized into a short form cocktail of visual attractiveness. On an algorithmic feed, you are forced to process a tragedy in 1 second, a comedy in the next, and rage in the third. We are stripping the gears of our empathy. We are training our brains, and our children's brains more importantly. The emotions are disposable, shallow, and last only as long as the content remains on the screen. If you feel like you're losing your mind, it's because you are gambling with your attention currency. And the house, the algorithm, is mathematically designed to win. And here's what concerns me as a parent. Not that my child laughs at a short video, but within 30 seconds, that laugh is replaced by anger, then fear, then comparison, then envy. In real life, emotions unfold over time. There is a waiting time in between heightened states. In a feed, they collide. We do not yet have decades of this data on this environment, as we are only just realizing what this relatively new technology is doing to people. That uncertainty alone should make us cautious. I am by far not an expert, but after some research, here are 9 signs the house is winning and 9 ways to beat the dealer of the social media casino. Number 1, switch cost paralysis. You can't finish a single task. Science calls this switch cost effect. Every time you check a notification, it takes your brain nearly 23 minutes to fully refocus. You aren't working, you're just recovering from the last distraction. Number 2, silence feels like a threat. You feel anxious without your phone. Your brain has begun to interpret stillness and silence not as rest, but as a void that must be filled. Number 3, the Google effect. Digital amnesia. You consume for hours but retain nothing because your brain knows the information is always accessible externally. It has stopped doing the hard work of encoding it internally. Number 4, baseline boredom intolerance. Real life moves at 1 speed. The edit moves at 10 times that speed. When you train your brain to expect to cut every 3 seconds, a sunset or a conversation with your child feels agonizingly slow. Number 5, continuous partial attention. You're eating, texting, and watching simultaneously. You are physically present, but neurologically absent. Number 6, friction avoidance. You choose comfort over challenge. Why pursue a long-term goal that rewards you in a year when a swipe rewards you in a second? Number 7, artificial fatigue. You wake up tired. This is cognitive overload. You are processing more data before breakfast than a medieval peasant processed in a lifetime. Number 8, the death of curiosity. Algorithms give you answers before you've even asked the question. Without the struggle of wondering, true curiosity atrophies. Number 9, social miscalibration. We evolved to compare ourselves to our tribe of 150 people. Nowadays, you compare your humble family reel to the highlight reels of millions that have the whole production team creating for them. It is a recipe for inadequacy. The 9 protocols to rewire your brain. Number 1, intention before injection. Before you unlock the screen, say out loud why you're doing it. I am checking the weather. If you can't name the intention, don't unlock the phone. Number 2, finite goals versus infinite scroll. Social media has no bottom. Give it one. Set a hard timer. When the timer rings, the show is over. Number 3, reclaim the transition zones. Keep the phone away when you're idle, waiting in line, sitting on the toilet, waiting for the kettle. These micro moments of boredom are where your default mode network activates to solve problems. Number 4, movement over content. Your brain sits inside a body. High intensity exercise increases brain-derived neurotrophic factors, which literally helps repair the neural pathways damaged by stress and stagnation. Number 5, passive versus active consumption. Watching a 2-hour movie on TV is lean back entertainment. It allows to focus. Scrolling a feed is lean in addiction. If you want to watch, use a big screen, not a slot machine. A podcast is one of those deep dive methods that has become so popular nowadays, and it is the antithesis of a short. Number 6, schedule raw boredom. Sit in a chair for 10 minutes with no inputs. It will be painful. That pain is your dopamine receptors resetting. Number 7, darken the bedroom. Blue light surpasses melatonin, but the content surpasses peace. Charge your phone in the kitchen or in another room. Make the bedroom a sanctuary, not a cinema. And if it is a cinema, it has a screen, not a slot machine. Number 8, curate ruthlessly. The algorithm feeds you what you linger on. If you linger on rage, you get rage. Force feed the algorithm discipline or delete the app entirely. Search what you want to see or listen to. Do not be driven by the scroll of doom. Number 9, create to consume. The antidote to consumption is creation. Writing, building, speaking, painting. When you create, you're the master of dopamine, not the slave to it. This is one of the main reasons I started content creation on YouTube. I feel like I want to have a place to give my own perspective in the world and turn powerful ideas that inspire me into my own interpretation of them. And when we were young, TV shows had credits. The screen went black. The story ended. Today, the autoplay feature ensures the story never ends. But here is the thought I want to leave with you today. We talk about brain rot as if it's a disease. It's not. It's the theft of our attention. Every minute you spend scrolling is a minute of focus stolen from your work, your peace, and your children. When I watch my children, I do not see fragility, I see plasticity. We have all heard the saying, children are like sponges. Well, They literally are. Neuroplasticity is a gift. The brain adapts to what it repeatedly does. And that is hopeful. But it also means repeated fragmentation trains fragmentation. One of the saddest images I have seen related to this matter is having a child playing by themselves in a park or seeking attention from their parents that ignore them because they're busy watching empty TikToks of obese people breaking things because they're too overweight. Or worse than this even is to see a child holding a phone in the park, completely disconnected from the joys of childhood that many of us in my generation gave for granted. I'm not interested in fear-based narratives. I'm interested in finding a better, more purposeful way of using these tools with intention, not addiction. We are the first generation raising children inside algorithmic ecosystems optimized for engagement metrics, not for human flourishing. So the question is not, is technology evil? The question is simpler. Are we shaping the tools, or are the tools shaping us? And more importantly, what habits are we modeling for the people watching us from the backseat? I hope you found this video useful and interesting about the use of social media and how we can regulate ourselves in this modern day and age. If you did, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more content like this one every Friday. Hit the bell icon to receive a notification when the video is next live. I will also link all the articles I used as reference in the description below, so you can check all the more technical stuff I've been discussing today. You can also check out this video here where I talk about the concept of a new app called Promptflix that could replace Netflix in the near future with AI. And that is a wrap for this one, but I will see you on the next one.